Welcome back to a bit more Dreamweaver. In this particular example, I just want to spend a short time looking at ClearFlow. I don't want to explain too much about it because it's quite complicated and realistically it's not that important to really understand the whys and wherefores. It's just important to get your head around that it's needed. So I'm going to start off by looking at this. Don't forget the colours. The colours are there just so we can see where the different containers are. I've actually shrunk the view of this down to 25% so we can see it overall. So what we can see is we can see a header up here. We can see another div here. This is another div, and inside this is the reds are all divs as well. And they're what we focused on in making a grid in the last tutorial, the last video, should I say. And then down here we've got the footer. So the footer again is a div, and that's got 3 separate divs in it. And these have all got classes attached to them, of course. So I'll just take that back to 100%. So if we didn't have ClearFlow in this particular website here, what would happen is that as we floated this to the left and this to the left, and then this is floated to the left and that's floated to the left, and then that's floated to the left and that's floated to the left, and so on and so on and so on. The CSS or the website begins to get a bit confused as to what's floated and what's not floated. Let's try and understand it like that. So what you have to do effectively, because if you look at this green box here, that's not actually floated. So when you finish with this section here, you'd have to apply a ClearFlow to that. And likewise, within this green box here, if we just focus on that in the footer here, I say green, the dirty green behind it. If you're applying floats here and here and here, this actual dirty green box, the footer box behind it, the footer div behind it, that's not going to understand whether that's supposed to be floating either. It begins to get confused again. So you need a ClearFlow there as well. So just to get your head round, whenever you have floating elements, then you really are going to need a ClearFlow afterwards. Now, there's different ways to do this, but the contemporary way to do this is to apply what we call a subclass here in Dreamweaver. You can just write it into the CSS as well. So I'm showing you an example of what's being applied to that footer. So that footer had its own CSS there. Don't forget I've ticked show set here to just show the ones that have been applied to it. That's that dirty green color. There's its margin and its width and all that kind of thing. And it's got auto height in it. That means it's supposed to just expand out to the size of the elements that are put in it. But in order for that to work and for it to not get confused about the flow, it needs this subclass here, this subselector here. Okay, so again, show set is on. So all you need to do is write one of these subselectors for each one of these particular divs that you float. If you look, there's one there for the grid that's been done for that one there, and that was the section in the body above. So footer colon after, and then you need to select block because to display a block, because you've actually got a block within it. If you've done it in tables, it would display tables, and you need to clear the flow in both there. Okay, and then the content of this here, and you have to scroll right to the bottom to get to content. You just type content in and you put 2 speech marks in there. So exactly as it looks in there, that's what you need in there. If you want to just actually write it straight into the CSS, you can do as well. So I'll go to the CSS here and we will find it there. So you could just simply have that written straight into your CSS, and then it would also work as well. Don't forget, if you haven't called your footer, or there's another name for a div down there, or it's got a class applied to it that's different, you're going to have to call it, if it's called, I don't know, footer of the website, which would be a stupid name, but if it was called that, then you'd have to put footer of the website colon after. Okay, so an example of that is the grid one. Look, it's exactly the same thing again, but it's just grid colon after. So there's that one, and there's that one. Okay, so doing the same job, except one's got padding and one hasn't. All right, so make sure you've got that. Don't spend too much time stressing about it. Just make sure you nail that, and that will make everything align properly on the pages.